Well, you know, pre-hung doors are great when they work out, and they usually do. They work out when you're in a new house and it's all new construction and everything is sized correctly, because this house was built back in the 1920s. It was before they had standardized construction methods. For some reason, the opening is undersized in height and it is oversized in width. The opening is out of square, out of level, and out of plumb, and it's slightly oversized in width. And what I've had to do is close the opening down with different thicknesses of plywood, and you can see I have it perfectly plumb. That's perfectly straight up and down. It's out of level here. From the bottom to the top, it is about a half an inch out, which means that when I put this door in here, it's either going to swing open or swing shut. So what we're going to do is put the door in there, and then once we get it secured, there are some things I can do by moving the hinges one way or the other to correct for the irregularity in the wall. I may want to take this piece that I just put on off and substitute it for some shims. I just won't know until I see how the door's situated in there. I am going to have to cut the door down in height because the opening should have been framed at least 82 inches high, and instead it's 80 and a half. The width of the door is 28, and the width of the inside of the jamb is 28 and an 8. That's pretty tight, but I like to fit them tightly. You can always plane them down a little bit. Well, let's go see just how this thing is going to situate itself. I'm going to move this hinge about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to move this hinge over about 3/8 of an inch. The door will be situated plumb in the jamb. The jamb is not situated plumb in the wall, but we can manipulate the gain on the hinges, that is how far in or out they go, and correct for the whole problem. Okay, you saw that I drilled 5 holes, and if that head jamb were cupped or warped, I might need all 5 of those, but really, honestly, all I need are 3. When I put the door on its hinges, if for some reason I need a little bit of extra room, I can just by pounding on the jamb and putting a little shim in there. I can get the most minute amount, which might be all that it takes for the door to be perfect. But we won't know that until we put it in place. I have furred out the wall with these pieces of plywood, and I've shimmed it. And my jamb is more or less perfectly plumb, and I am right on level up at the top. I'm not going to concern myself with the lock side of the JAMB just yet. I am going to put 3 screws in at the location of each hinge. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. We're plumb, square, and level. Not bad. I think, however, since the gap up here is just a little bit greater than it is over here, there's a couple things I can do to compensate for that. And one of which is to pull this screw out. Again, I don't use nails until I'm absolutely certain that everything is going to work. I like to use screws because if I have something unforeseeable or maybe I make a mistake, I can undo it quickly. I'm going to put a shim behind this screw. That is going to do it. Now it's just a matter of adjusting this side of the JAMB to the leading edge or the lock side, lock rail of the door. We got a little bit of excess, a little space here behind the JAMB, and we'll just fill that in using these shims, just like they've always done. Well, I may need to bang the JAMB out a little bit. There's a gap there. I need to close that up, and now that I'm sure that the top hinge is going to be situated in exactly that location, that's what I'm going to do, and that will give us a little more room over here, and at the same time lift the door up and close this gap that's occurring here. So I'm going to do the old carpenter's trick and just put something behind the hinge and spring the leaf of the hinge over a little bit by closing it. And that will actually bend the leaf just enough to close that up. If it's tight fitted, I can always bang it over a little bit, and that's almost perfect. It's a very fidgety undertaking. This door has plenty of room to open and close. It actually closes further in to the JAMB because of the hinge side of the door is beveled as well as the leading edge, so that will prevent it from sticking when we have humid weather. And you know, this is a bathroom, so it's all about humidity, and I've left a very generous gap here about the size of a nickel, which is more than enough to deal with all of the changes in the weather. And now that I know how much I had to cut the door down, I'm going to put the lock at 36 inches. See how the door has a tendency to want to shut? The reason for that is because this wall is leaning in, which means that the JAMB is out of plumb as the wall is out of plumb. There's nothing I can do about that. But what I can do is to move this hinge over 1/4 of an inch and this hinge about 3/8 of an inch. We'll do that, and that way the door will stay shut or it will stay open. I'm going to move this hinge in about 1/4 of an inch, and this one about 3/8. I put longer screws in. I want the screws to go through the jamb and into the stud behind the jamb. It stays open in any position. It is almost perfectly plumb, but you remember how it had a tendency to want to fall shut before because of the fact that that wall was leaning? Well, we moved the middle and the bottom hinge in to make the door perfectly plumb, square, and level in a wall that is anything but square, level, and plumb. That about does it. And if you have a situation that calls for extreme measures, now you know how to deal with it. Everybody likes Granddad's old miter box, and that's about how old this thing is. I think it goes back to the 1940s or 50s. I'm just going to loosely tack this in place. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for today. Thanks for your interest. See you next time.